Before we get into this video, I just want to say that I know I don't make this kind of content much, but if you do like it and you want to see more, please let me know in the comments and consider liking and subscribing because I really do love doing this and I would love your feedback. Anyway, that's all for my obligatory opening statement. Onto the video. I'm just gonna get straight into this and say that even though some people may think that Invincible's animation is fine or even good, I think it's pretty clear that it sucks. Animation has recently come a very long way, but Invincible never fails to look like it came out decades ago. But with that being said, I still really do like Invincible, which is probably a huge surprise. Oh, he thinks the animation is bad, but he still likes the show. What a unique opinion. Listen, this is just me sharing my opinion like everybody else, and it's also my channel, so I do what I want. Anyway, other than critiquing the animation, I do want to use this video to give my review of the first 3 episodes of season 3. First though, the animation. It's not good. Is it a big problem? No, I don't think so, but it is the worst part of the show, for me at least, and with characters and writing this good, it does suck to see that the animation is not on the same level. And recently, I've seen how good the original comic looks, which makes it even worse that the animation is bad. Like, they have a template for exactly how the show should look, but they continue to cut corners and ignore the community when it comes to the animation. And I'm not blaming the animators. I'm sure that they could do a great job if that's what the studios or producers or whatever wanted, but I also want to point out that it's clearly not a budget problem because it is an Amazon show after all, since they keep hiring very well-known celebrities for the voice acting, which is great, but personally, I would rather see the show look much better than see that Breaking Bad is doing a crossover with Invincible. I'm sure I'll be excited when I hear Jesse or Mike in the show, but it would also be exciting to see the flying in the show be more than a sliding JPEG and for the characters to have a bit more movement and expression. Kinda like how they do in the teasers and the trailers. Seriously, hire those animators. I know that they animate other, even more explicit things compared to Invincible, but I don't care. I want the whole show to look like this. Anyway, moving on to my review of the first 3 seasons of episode 3. That's not right. The first 3 episodes of season 3. They're pretty good, other than the animation. It's still bad, but the writing and the characters, the parts of Invincible that it's much better known for, are still great. Every time I was skeptical or I thought I saw a bad character moment or a writing flaw, the show would pretty quickly shut me up. To show what I mean, I'm going to use a couple Cecil moments that personally showed me just how good the show is. At the beginning of season 2, when Cecil is investigating the store, he barely does anything before saying that the tip was a bust. And at that moment, I was like, wow, he barely did anything. Why would he already say that? Now he's definitely going to get jumped. That is totally out of character for him. And then a couple minutes later, he's like, actually, it was code. And then I was like, oh wow, never mind. Good job, show. I know that's a pretty random moment, but before I explain the significance of it to me, I want to give another example, which is when Cecil is in prison. We see him get stuck in a cell with this huge monster, and the lady tells him his last cellmate left in a bucket. But then a couple shots later, the same cellmate is calling him boss, and Radcliffe, the old GDA director, offers him his job. There's a 3-year time jump in just a couple of seconds and in like one shot, but the time jump itself and everything that happened during it is shown through the single shot and literally a couple of words said by characters that have maybe a minute or so of combined screen time. We know that Cecil fixed things because of the shot of the prison getting cleaned up, and we know that Cecil took control of the prison because his cellmate that was implied to kill him called him boss. And we know that 3 years passed because Radcliffe tells us, but not just through blatant exposition, it's through a very important moment in Cecil's story. Now let me finally get to my point. Cecil fixing the prison could have been done in a big montage of him and other inmates doing stuff around the prison, or even worse, it could have been told through a bunch of exposition, but the show does not need that and the audience probably doesn't want that since they want to get back to the main story with Mark and everyone. So instead, everything happens in, like I said, one shot and a couple lines of dialogue. And for any viewer with an ounce of common sense and the ability to put 2 and 2 together, they will instantly understand what is going on, even though they're given the least information necessary to convey the story, which is what I love so much about Invincible. It doesn't treat its audience like idiots. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with new shows and movies. They treat their audiences like children who need everything explained to them, and it's insulting to people who are actually capable of consuming media. I could get more into that in a separate video, but for now I'll get back to Invincible. I'm gonna make this quick because I haven't made this kind of content before and I don't want to make this video too long, but the writing and the characters in Invincible are, for the most part, pretty great. I'm most skeptical of Oliver because depending on what happens with him throughout the rest of the season, he might be a bit of a weak point for the show, but when it comes to everybody else, I don't really have many complaints. I do think the dialogue is a bit corny sometimes, and the voice acting is a little over-exaggerated at times, but even though it can kind of take me out of it for a bit, it doesn't really impact my enjoyment of the show or what I think of it overall. In the important moments, everything is done well. I could care less about a single line of dialogue being weird or sounding off in a relatively unimportant part of the show. It doesn't happen that many times, but enough for me to want to point it out. Anyway, back to my biggest and pretty much only significant critique of the show, the animation. I can understand why they haven't bothered improving it, since people are going to come back to the show regardless, but I still think that it should be a priority to make the show look better. Imagine Invincible with Arcane level animation and an Arcane level art style. I don't mean Arcane specifically, but just on the same level. If that were the case, Invincible would be even bigger than it is now, and people would probably be putting it in like their top 5 shows ever, especially since some people probably already are. One of the biggest reasons that Arcane was as big as it was is because of how amazing it looked. It's based on League of Legends after all, so they had to get the people interested somehow. And personally, I think Arcane is a bit overrated, especially season 2, because the characters and story aren't as peak as people people say they are. So because Arcane has that problem, and Invincible has its animation problem, I think that they would theoretically create a quote-unquote perfect animated show if the animators of Arcane and the writers of Invincible work together on one show. That's just a thought though. It doesn't really have anything to do with Invincible Season 3 specifically. I just wanted to say that. But anyway, that is all I got to say about Invincible Season 3 so far. I know I didn't go super in depth, but like I said, I haven't made this kind of content much and I wanted to make this video pretty short. So right now, it's more of the same from Invincible, which is good to hear even if it's not all perfect. There's a lot more I could talk about though, so if you want to see this kind of content more and you want more Invincible videos, please let me know in the comments and by liking and subscribing, and I will be glad to release weekly videos on what I thought of that week's episode. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed, and until next time.